Bunch of things frozen up this morning, so it was nice. I'm John Flanders, and the reason I'm here is I'm related to 3 of the original 16 members of the Rotary Club. The Rotary Club was, first meeting was June 13th, 1919, and they received their charter June 17th. From Rotary International, and then later that August they had a big meeting where the higher-ups came and gave us our charter. That happened to be a Tuesday. We've met on Tuesdays ever since 1919. They originally met in the Imperial Hotel. That's a picture, I believe, in 1925. And it's got most of the original members, and that's the earliest picture we have. They dressed a little different than we do today, that's for sure. Shy's clothing did well with hats. If any of you knew of Solomon Shy. So Frederick Walter Flanders was my great-grandfather. He was later mayor in the town, defeating the Ku Klux Klan for that office in the 20s. He was a realtor. Franklin Pierce Secor was my other great-grandfather. So I have 2 great-grandfathers that were original members. He was the county judge for decades. His son, Gray Secor, was also original member, attorney in town. And I've got some remembrances that Gray wrote. I found a file of Gray's recently looking through small family stuff. And it's full of amazing amount of material, mainly from the 20s, which we'll get into later. They had their weekly bulletin was called the Weekly Whiz. It was put up over the urinals at the Imperial Hotel. You could read what the program was, and mostly it's a bunch of jokes. So, just what some of the early people did. Charles Gunning was a Colorado Brick and Tile. They made brick. His suggestion to save the forest was build with brick. He was also a national champion trap shooter. And so one of Longmont's more famous people. Fred Heverly, Longmont Drugs. Lloyd Harris, Harris Furniture. And these businesses lasted for decades and decades. Charles Kistler, is my wife's great-grandfather, and he was also a charter member. And he ran the grain mill and so forth. To wrap this up, I found a sheet called Rotary Remembrances from Gray Secor. It's not dated, I'm guessing it's in the early 20s. And he's talking about a program where, I'll start reading, Enos Mills, and he was one of the founders of Rocky Mountain National Park, and his cabin is at Moraine Park. That's the museum for the national park to this day. So, here it goes. Enos Mills told us at the Imperial Hotel, originally the Zweck Hotel, that he had guided over 1,000 trips up Long's Peak. Inevitably, when the party reached the summit, some dame would come out with, quote, "This is nearer heaven than I have ever been before." George Zweck asked Mills to take him along on his next trip up the peak. Mills consented. They reached the top, and out came some lady with, "This is nearer to heaven than I've ever been before." Zweck replied in his German accent, "Yes, madam, this is farther from hell than I will ever be again." So this kind of humor all the way through the Weekly Whiz. Fred Baxter, who was the first president, was so impressed by the Will Rogers movie, quote, "They had to see Paris," and told us that all of us should go see it. And if we didn't like it, he would refund the admission charge. At the next meeting, a member rose and stated that, following Fred's suggestion, the whole club had attended the movie and was greatly disappointed. He asked anyone else who hadn't liked it to please rise. Everyone stood up under a prearranged plan. When out comes Fred with a whole roll of $half-dollars, and started distributing them around. We gave them back, explaining that we were all just framing up on him. So that's the kind of practical jokes and humor and type of men. It was a men's club. That's why you could have jokes about dames and so forth. One more little item from his list, and then we'll wait next week. Longmont won the prize at Rotary International in Edinburgh, Scotland, for having the largest attendance of any club based on number of members and distance traveled. The Rotarians who made the trip from Longmont to Scotland were Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd Harris, Mr. and Mrs. D.M. Callahan, and Dr. and Mrs. John Andrew, Mr. and Mrs. Walter Coulihan, and John A. Donovan. That's it for this week.
Thank you, John. That was great. Yeah, I think we all kind of got a feel of what it was, what that club was about. So